the Daily Drama Podcast with Stephen Bradford, presented by dailydrama.com, with special guest Gregory Harrison. Hey, buddy.
Hey, nice to see you guys.
How you
Good to
feeling?
see you, man.
You looked a little pale on Monday on the show. How you feeling?
I was a little pale, wasn't I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man,
quite the reaction in the last couple of days.
Man, you guys have honestly, Gregory, I mean, we've talked about it on our podcast prior to you and on our live podcast yesterday, how awesome I feel like, you know, because I don't watch the show, but I'm able to see you guys when I'm downstairs watching.
Right.
And it's just how they handle this whole thing. It just feels like it worked seamlessly. Like the work you guys have been doing has been honestly incredible. I just have to say that watching you guys,
thank you,
you and Michael, it's just been, I get teared up from even talking about it. You guys have been awesome.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Yeah. I loved doing the show. You know, started out as a 10-show arc 3.5 years ago. And I thought, you know, am I going to even be able to pull this off? You know, I mean, honestly, you guys are old pros at it, but I had never done a soap in my life.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you, because obviously you have credits that go back, you know, you've done.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
many,
I've done
things.
everything else. I've done everything else. You know, books on tape and movies and theater and TV and radio plays, and I've done everything. So, like the plague, doing a soap. You know, I'd gotten a career going without having to start in the soap world. Sure. And I thought, oh, thank God, I don't ever have to test my brain like that.
You just did everything in reverse. You just got all the big stuff out of the way and then finished, you know, wind down.
Let's hope I'm not finished.
No,
yeah.
Sorry.
Thanks, Brad. That's really great.
Yeah. Thanks for that.
I'll post it.
I'll
post it this
out
week
in the universe. Yeah. No, but I was just so scared of it.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know why, but because I do theater and I do huge plays and chunks of dialogue, but you get 4 weeks to rehearse that stuff and learn it. And to do this every day, I don't know, the whole concept of it seemed just terrifying to me. And it was.
Sure.
But it was the first job offered after COVID.
Oh, interesting.
Because the soap world, I think, had figured out a protocol before anybody else had. It's kind of because we're all in one stage and you got little story bubbles, so everybody's kind of separate. You can keep everybody protected. And so they were the first one. That was the first phone call I got from my agent.
Wow.
And I hadn't worked in 9 months or a year while we were all sitting around waiting to see what was going to happen with COVID. And I just heard myself like an out of body thing going, tell him yes, I'll do it. Yes. And then I hung up the phone and the terror hit me.
Oh man.
But I, you know, so I went in, I started it. I remember I was just so terrified the first few days, but then I went, oh, I see how it works. You know, I mean, see, you got 25 pages, but you go in at 7 and you're done by 10:30 and, driving back home to start memorizing the next day or the next work day, you know?
Sure.
And it's a process, requires more homework than anything I'd ever done in my life. But it was also kind of fun. It became kind of fun. And it turned into a 3.5 year gig with a character arc that I really had fun with and that required me finding incremental changes in the character as this disease progressed and as my relationships progressed, and I had a ball with it. I just had a ball.
So
I loved it.
As your preparation kind of evolved, was there like a a moment where you realized, oh, my preparation for this is different than anything I've ever done, or is it just in terms of like the speed and the memorization of it, or do you know what I mean? Because I mean, like, you know, thinking about the other work that you've done, the preparation that you do for that, the relationship building that you create in your head or through a rehearsal process, like, I don't know. I guess what are the nuances of your preparation that you kind of see and evolve?
Well, I mean, I see why people come from the soap world when they start in the soap world. They come from it and become so adept at acting in all different mediums, because it's a real test It's a real test. You got to make, you know how you go to classes and acting 101, and they're talking about you got to know your objective. You got to make choices and commit to them. You've got, all those fundamental acting class things. They are so true in the soap world, more true than almost anywhere, because you don't have a director who can help you make choices on the set. You don't have rehearsals to help find what you want to do, or enough time for people to say, you know what, let's try it doing the other way. Like, I've had the benefit of all that for my whole career to some extent. I mean,
Sure.
on TV, you're shooting 10 pages a day.
Right.
But at max. But still, I thought 10 a day was a lot of pages.
Sure.
What GH is doing 100 and something pages a day.
Yeah.
But
Sometimes
I found that it was really a good acting challenge. I had to make really solid choices and know what I wanted to do and know how I felt about being in the room. I think musically. So I think, what instrument am I playing in this scene? What's the sound? Am I the bassoon or the drums? What is my job in this scene? And what are the other instruments that are in the room? And what's the music in this scene? And where am I coming from? What bar of music did I just do? And what bar of music is coming up next? And so I placed myself in a piece of music. Wow. That's how I think on
that's
an emotional
a beautiful
level.
way of charting it out. Yeah,
for sure.
But this really taught me to have to commit to that.
Yeah.
There's no going in to work on a day and thinking, well, we'll find it. We'll find it. No, you got to have it. You got to have it. No. But then the challenge, I'm telling you guys know this, but for your audience, then the challenge is you've locked all this stuff in, you've made these hard choices, but you're not going to necessarily get what you think what you imagine someone else is going to do. So you got to also be listening and be malleable enough to respond in kind and play a scene in the moment. Yeah. But you have to come from something. In other words, you have to make a hard choice and then be willing to adjust. And that for an actor is a really challenging and fun thing. And I think it really fine-tuned my skills. I think doing this in my 70s fine-tuned my skills as an actor. And I went home every day after work, not necessarily having created gems, on the set, but having learned something. And having reinforced things that I've been working on my whole career. So it was really fun that way too.
Well, that also shows that you're, a great scene partner and open to, I think a lot of people come in here expecting either it to be, more basic or simple and not wanting to learn. So that shows a great part of your character.
Well,
yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. And actually, Gregory, the great thing back in the day when the soaps were in their heyday, when I started, there were, I think 23 or 24 soap operas in early 90s. And now there's 4, but a lot of the producers that I worked with had come from theater, and we did have the luxury because I found a script from 1991 and we did 21 scenes a day.
One day.
Yeah. That's what we were doing. We're not doing like today's 65, right? We were doing 21. So we did have the luxury of producers coming out and go, hey, let's do it. Let's try this. Can you just try it this way? And they were the directors. They came out, the hands-on producers, and we'd get 3 or 4 cracks at it a lot of times, which is nice.
Yeah.
Right. But we're in the state now where we have to make, like you said, you have to make those decisions. You hopefully get a couple times, run it through downstairs with your scene partner. Maybe you can find something. And then when you're up there, here's to hoping. One take.
Bam. And if I'm not wrong, back in the 90s, we're talking about it like that's ancient times. To me, that was my 40s and 50s. Back then, you also when you were able to run it down there, you also had continuity going, right? You shot 100%. in some continuity.
Yeah, usually,
which is helpful.
Yeah, we would still shoot out of order sometimes, but not like now. I mean, this is just complete madness, crazy talk. Like, it's like, where am I? Who am I? What am I doing? What happened last time? We've had a month off. What's going on?
So that's what I'm saying that was fun for me and challenging, because if you can use my music analogy, you know, it's like,
Yeah.
okay, I played a bar of music that's going to fit into this, it's going to connect to this piece 2 weeks ago. Now, then I walk into this room, it's 2 weeks later in real time, but it's the next moment on the showtime, and I have to know what I did in that, and know emotionally and literally physically where am I coming from, what am I bringing into the room from what I just played. So spreading things out like that is always challenging too. You got to know what you did and have set a plan, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's something
sure.
I've thinking about, something you were talking about earlier about, being present and all those acting beats that you talked about. One thing that I just came into my mind, obviously when you're preparing, the hope is that you're present with your scene partner, and that presence is what creates like the space where things happen. But the presence that we need to have on our show, on our stage, you have to kind of be present. And I guess this happens in film and TV too, but you kind of have to be present with the entire production because everyone's doing it for the first time. So you have to be so aware of what's
So
happening too. And I'm
that's a
curious,
great that's a great point. That's a
is that a
great point.
different kind of presence than you've experienced in all your other work?
Great
And
point.
I wonder if that's part of the excitement. Because one of my next question for you is, I know you just started something else. When I do other things, I get a little bored. And I wonder, because yes, it's fast paced, but that presence, there's that other piece that I don't find anywhere else. So that I just as a thought I wanted to share with you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you that there is a kind of, I don't know how much theater you guys do, but there's a theatrical kind of excitement to doing a soap,
Yeah.
because it's all happening in the moment, and you get your one shot at it for the most part. You don't get two unless you really blow it, and and even then, it's like
And pick it up.
back up
Yeah.
2 lines
Right.
and go
Yeah.
forward. So I get that from theater. I always have. You know, I
Yeah.
love that sense of excitement and not knowing for sure how it's going to go, and having to be ready to go with the flow of of extraneous input and stuff that happens, that you can't back up.
Mm.
You got to keep going forward. You know, there's the old
Yeah.
show must go on thing. Well, that
Right.
really
Sure.
happens. That happens much more on our soundstage on GH than it
For sure.
does. Like, I just finished a couple of movies I shot up. As soon as I finished GH, I went up to Canada 2 days later and started a couple of movies for Hallmark. And yeah, I got a little bored. I'm sitting
Yeah.
around for 14 hours a day,
Yeah.
and I'm shooting 6 pages a day. You know, and
Yeah.
it wasn't very challenging. It didn't feel challenging. You know, I
Sure.
had fun with it, and I
Of
liked the
course.
people a lot, but
Of course.
it wasn't that high level intense challenge
Yeah. It's amazing.
that is so exciting.
Yeah. A little bit
So
of adrenaline.
let
Yeah.
me
Yeah.
let me go a little deeper into Brad's question from a technical standpoint, because obviously you're used to doing, I mean, you've done it all, but single camera where you're kind of locked in, your mark's locked in, the lights locked in,
Yeah.
and it's very precise. With this, you have a little wiggle room. Did you find yourself adjusting when maybe the light wasn't on you, or adjusting for camera, being aware of the four cameras and more aware, or did you just stay locked into the scene, your scene partner?
A good question. I one of the things that I think my career changed when I became capable of isolating myself within a crowd, and that sound stages are always crowds, and
Mm.
and in order to isolate myself into my reality, into the storyline, into the characters, into the, where I literally am capable. There was a point finally when I became capable of having a camera right here and not even knowing it's there. And so
Amazing.
I quit being self-conscious in any way.
Right.
And you got to really have that on the soap, because you got four cameras there rolling around,
Sure.
But I did find that doing the couple of these movies there for 2 or 3 weeks, that that I was even better at that than I had been. That I've learned something in the 3 years on GH.
What are the
You know,
transferable skills in that way then? Like what in terms of what because we get luck. I've been doing this for 18 years and I haven't done a lot outside since I've been doing this. And so I'm curious, like from someone like you that has had all the experience, what can you identify like a couple things that like working on soaps helps outside of?
Well, not patience. That's number one.
Yeah, right.
it helps in a couple of things. It helps
Mm,
in listening on camera. And part of that is what I was just talking about. Part of that is that you're not thinking about yourself, and you're not thinking about your performance, and you're not thinking about who else is in the room outside of this scene or where the camera is nearly as much. You have to focus on a soap so much. I just dropped my earphone. You have to
That's all right. We're still here.
you have to focus on a soap so intently in order to be any good that I felt like more focused than ever because of the 3 years I just spent on GH.
wow.
Yeah. More focused.
Sure.
And to me, focus and lack of self-consciousness equals a better performance always. If you're watching yourself, you're making a mistake as an actor.
You're dead. Yeah, for sure.
You're dead. You're dead.
Dead. 100%.
So
that's awesome.
So that's how it helped me.
That's fantastic. One thing I was looking back at your, we've always, Steve and I have IMDb trolled you for a bit now.
Well, we did. Well, we especially did it during the wedding.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? When you were doing, when you were having your episode on the show, I'm like, damn, this guy, man, he's so good. Like he's so.
Were you sitting in the church with your?
Yeah,
phones?
we were in the church. He and I were.
Yeah, we were in the back row. Yeah.
And
I saw you guys sitting there, and I wondered. I saw you looking at your phones.
We literally went through your whole IMDb. I'm like, dude, look at this one. I said, and we had a funny conversation about how syndication became. You only needed 5 years under your belt, and you did like 175 episodes or whatever it was of Trapper John, and I'm like,
right,
those days are over.
Over.
Over, man.
So, but go ahead, Brad. What was your question?
Well, talking about how you when you said yes to this, how like you were a little anxious, I guess you'd say. But as you said, you have done so many different genres. Is there any other job that you took that you felt? When's the last time you took a leap like that? I watched you do sing "All I Can Do, All I Care About Is Love" at the Rose Parade in 2003.
Oh, you did?
That was. Yeah.
Yeah, I did Chicago for 2.5 years on tour, and I did it for like 6 months on Broadway, and I've done 2 other Broadway musicals. I mean, maybe there I was equally nervous, because you go to New York, and again, you said earlier, Brad, that I've had, I did it backwards by doing the soap last. My whole career has been backwards. I started on Catalina Island. I went east to Hollywood. Most people start somewhere in middle America and go west.
Exactly.
I went east to Hollywood. I studied for like 4 years on the GI Bill. I'd been in the Army and, been a medic and do all that. And so I had the GI Bill. I studied in acting schools for 4 years. And then I got a feature film. I starred in a feature film. That was my first gig.
Wow.
So I never did bit parts or anything like that. But I studied like crazy and pounded the pavement for 4 or 5 years to learn my craft. So I started in features, worked my way into television, then bought a theater up on Santa Monica Boulevard, the Coast Playhouse, for 15 years and produced 60 plays.
Whoa.
And then worked my way to New York and did 3 Broadway musicals.
Wow.
And in like my 40s and 50s. So I've done everything backwards.
Yeah.
Amazing. I've checked all the boxes now.
Sure.
Finally, now that I've done my soap. Yeah. But I checked them backwards, Yeah. It was like I started one where nobody else starts, and I finished, where most people don't finish. So we'll see.
You're not finished.
And you're not.
And I'm not finished. Finished.
Well, I I was thinking about your career, and there's another person that I worked with before I got into TV. I worked with John Glover. Do you know John?
Yeah,
Yeah, he played
great
my.
actor.
I did an Albie play with him back east. The goat, or who is
Oh,
Sylvia? He played my dad.
yeah,
And I was actually
yeah.
I did mostly musical theater. It wasn't until I did that play that my reps were like, "Oh, maybe you'll be taken seriously as an actor. Maybe now it's time to go to Los Angeles." Um, so, but I remember at that age looking at, or not even now, looking at his career, and he won Tonys for Love, Valor, Compassion. He was, Lex Luthor's dad. Like, I,
And Angels in America, I think he
I,
did that as
I
well.
think so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I really admire careers where you can have a level of success and still do multi-genre things. And
It's amazing.
and I wonder, like, that in this age, I feel like you have to be even braver to try to do that. I mean, obviously sometimes you just follow the course of things, but I wonder how many people are going to be able to do that going forward. I just it feels harder now, and I don't want to.
I think it is, and I think the reason that it is even harder, it's always been hard,
Yeah,
because the inclination of of the human species is to perceive you in what they've seen you in, and then keep you in that position.
right.
Well, we
The
know.
inclination of everyone is to push you into that box and keep you
Yeah,
there,
Yeah,
that's right.
so that they don't have, they're not challenged to imagine you as anything else. And that's just their inclination. It's human, it's just being human. So your job, if you want to be what you're talking about, a versatile person, a versatile actor or artist, is to keep trying to push against the walls of that box and expand it.
yeah,
So now, though, with social media, it's even more so. Social
mm,
Yeah.
media puts you in a box, and it's just an echo chamber. Most people end up in their own little echo chambers. And so people just stay where they are, and nobody is even, not nobody, but so many people aren't even inclined to try and stretch the box,
Well,
yeah,
you know?
yeah, and I think going along with your point, I think there's been a new regime, a new generation of casting people also. So
Mm-hmm.
I felt like they would go to theater to mine talent more back then, 30,
Oh,
40 years
yeah.
ago than
Yeah.
they do now,
Uh-huh.
because social media is such a prominent thing
they
for
go to
them to look
YouTube,
at.
Instagram, and
And if you have
Australia.
100, a million followers, you get a job now as an
Right,
actor.
Right.
It's
right.
like,
There's a
we're not
kind of
going.
there's a kind of inherent laziness that social media and virtual communication. I mean, look, we're zooming from three different places.
We're
It's
lazy.
like,
We're lazy, Greg. We're
well,
lazy.
but I mean, we're doing it. It's great. It's a double-edged sword,
Sure.
like everything
Of
else.
course.
It's great that we're able to do this, but now we can audition from home. We don't have to live in Hollywood to work in Hollywood. We people have all this ability to be separate and just work across these little phones and computers.
Yeah.
And so there's the social aspect of it, of going to theater, of going into a room and auditioning for agents and auditioning for roles and all of that, where you see other actors, and you where you're in this milieu, where you see other performers making choices for things that you're also fighting to get. That's really interesting, and I think it's eye-opening for us as actors to say, "Oh God, that was an interesting choice.
Yeah,
I didn't even imagine that choice. That guy." You're listening as they're auditioning
Totally.
in the room,
Totally.
and you're going, "Whoa, God, I didn't even think of that. Oh, that I'm gonna go home, and even if I don't get this today, I'm gonna go home and rethink this thing, because
yeah,
so there's ways in the old days, there was, you really did get to know each other, and you really did get to know people's talents, and experience them face to face. And I think there's something really inspiring and teaching about that, educational about that. So
yeah.
Yeah.
There's I think one of the things that's been lost, and not to just kind of harken back to old days with sadness and
yeah,
whatever, but and I experienced this in New York in the 2000s when I was out of school. You became, you're part of a community. and the casting directors and everybody's part of that community, right?
Mm-hmm,
Where
mm-hmm.
you're in the room with each other, you get a sense of who you are as people, you establish you start to care about other people and that community.
Right.
You would see people in the waiting room, you would root for people, you would be jealous of people, you would be attracted to people, you would and but also it was like a living being community, even though we weren't all part of the same team as you were. We at a larger sense we were all creatives trying our best to create something at some point, to and man, I miss that. And I feel like
I do too.
I feel like as human beings, anybody that wants to be creative, that's a loss, because gosh, creativity is inherently, I feel like with collaboration, everyone
communal.
is lifted.
It's communal.
Yeah, because it's energy.
Yeah.
You're aligned. You have people that you're aligned with energetically.
Yeah.
That want the same thing, and you can't put a price on that.
And Steve, you're sort of, you mentioned something earlier about sitting in the room. You don't watch the show, but you would sit in the room like I would in our little dressing room, and we'd have their TV on, showing us what's going on up top. Yeah. And we'd be watching everybody do their scenes.
Yeah.
That's how I loved that. I loved that I'd be preparing mine or running lines, but I'm sort of in my peripheral. I'm hearing and watching all the other actors, the 50 or 60 actors on General Hospital doing their scenes for an hour or two while I'm waiting to go up.
Yeah.
And that was so inspiring too, So I felt that communal thing with at GH much more than I would anywhere else.
Yeah.
Listen, here's the thing, Gregory, what you just said, it's like when I watched you guys, it puts a fire under me.
Right.
I see you guys freaking crush a scene. I'm like, damn, I'm going up next. I got to go. Like
it's like tennis, man. You got to rise to the level of whoever's across the net from you.
100%, man. And and that's what's cool about being on a soap opera is you do have that energy still. So
yeah. And those big, those big days where it's a wedding, it's a whatever it is, you really remember that we're an ensemble. And that is so cool, because oftentimes we're not all in each other's storylines, and you might sometimes feel like you're in a bubble because you're not working with more people than who are in your bubble. So I love those days. Sometimes they can be long, sometimes they can, but when you're watching good work like what you're doing, it's not long.
Thank you.
But it's really cool to be in an ensemble. So
I don't want to finish this without saying how much I loved working with the people that are in my bubble, in my story bubble up there. Michael Easton was just fabulous to me from day one, and easy to work with, and so committed and so open to anything. And I just loved Michael, and Josh was the same, for me. And then to be able to play with Nancy Gran and all of that she was great and so much fun, and she comes in and it's like riding a bucking bronco. You just don't know what she's going to bring, and she's full of surprises, which I loved, because I'm willing to play.
Sure.
And I'm willing to change my plan,
Right.
And you have to with Nancy. You have to in a really good way.
Absolutely.
But then they put me with Jane for the last 6 months or so, and we got to play and flirt. And if there's anything I regret about them killing me off as fast as they did, it's that there was this relationship growing between Gregory and Tracy.
Yeah.
I mean, the days that I had scenes with Jane, I was so excited to roll out of bed and go into work. And I never knew what Jane was going to bring, but I knew it was going to be incredible. And she's amazing. She's a force of nature.
Force of nature is a great description. She's always been, since I've been on the show. You just don't know. And her energy is incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible. And
incredible.
If she called me to do anything, I would say, yep, I'm there. I'll work with you on anything, Jane, because
that's awesome.
She blew me away every single day I worked with her. She just blew me away.
So good.
Yeah.
Love that. Well, hey, man, it's been such a delight to have you as a part of our ensemble, man. Really lucky for us.
It was my pleasure. I felt honored.
And I know the fans are loving you, so that's incredible.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
I
I feel lucky I'm going to see you at golf tournaments. So it's
It's
a see you later, not a goodbye. That's for sure.
Okay.
Golf or surfing. We'll take one or the other.
That's right. I might be out there later today.
Nice.
Amazing. All right, man. Well, thank you
right.
so much for giving us your
Gregory,
time. We
thank
truly
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. All the best to you.
too.
Great luck going forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.